Welcome here to a full review of the all-new Range Rover Evoque, one of the vehicles you want to see us driving. Today with Thomas here on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. And of course, as you know, everything you need to know in exterior, interior and the driving experience. And we will also of course compare it with the previous generation and how does it compare actually to some of the competitors. Tune in now. In Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front here, the new Evoque somewhat stayed the same. You can still see it's an Evoque, yes, but everything is, let's say, more seamlessly integrated. A very flat front here as well. There's not an element which really stands out. Still, then, those very slim headlamps, LED daytime running light, they come with LED as standard. Optional, a matrix LED function with a more elaborated high beam and also an auto high beam that switches on and off and also saves some spots. However, 2 times so far I had the experience that people actually stopped me or turned the window down and said like, what the hell are you doing? You're blinding everyone. And the one thing that, once it happened before in the Range Rover Vella and now in the Range Rover Evoque. So there seems to be something about this Land Rover or Range Rover auto high beam system which is not correctly done, so all the time people are blinded, and now ended up with deactivating this auto high beam function that they don't blind people. Yeah, but it's good. That's also why we test the vehicles right here. Other than that, you can see here this one is a P200 petrol engine SE, and then with the R dynamic pack or trim, so we also have a more sporty front right here, and the color for today is Firenze red, so Firenze, like town in Italy, or Florence in Germany, Florence. Pretty nice color and adds some more of the emotion. The length is at 4.37 meters, 14'3" or 172 inches, which is kind of the same as the previous generation. A slight increase in wheelbase, and wheels are available from 17 to 21 inch. These ones here are 18-inch winter tires, so they look a little bit more balloonish because of winter tires, but still I think the size is quite good. It's a good compromise between the visual stuff and the comfort still, because I can already tell you right now, there's a base suspension available and then in the depth suspension €1,500 extras. But still, this is a rather stiff car, has been always, and so you should not go for bigger rims if you want more comfort. Here again, there's a badge for the R dynamic trim, and we also have then this black contrasting mirrors, also black elements right here, so quite sporty look, also with a black frame here around. And the car does not look that spectacular anymore as in the previous generation, where some really say like, oh, I love this design with the very small windows and stuff, and others said, oh, it looks like a big Range Rover where an elephant just, sit on the back and everything was crunched. Very interesting. Interesting are also the door handles, which stand out, but when you close the vehicle, they actually fold in and everything is then seamlessly integrated. Interesting, definitely. Better also for wind efficiency, but then again, it's also making stuff a little bit more complicated, so you have to also bear that in mind. So what do you think here as for the design? As for the rear, there's also this very modern contemporary look here with a very slim LED signature. So the Evoque indeed had a paradigm change as for the design in the previous generation already. So beforehand, all Land Rover, Range Rovers were done, let's say, in a timeless design. With this Evoque, everything switched to a more contemporary design. So very interesting as for this development as well. Evoque logo and also the P200 SE as for the trim, soon more to the engines. It is also very distinct here in the rear. Has kind of a bulky shape, but everything again very seamlessly integrated. That's also new with this new generation. And in this dynamic package or trim, we also have this diffuser style in the lower end. However, what about exhaust? Well, there is no fake exhaust, and I really like that. The rear one is just here, and good that they did not go, well, not sure if this one, but this is like a, you know, honeycomb structure, but not really a fake exhaust. So I think overall quite good design choice as for the lower part. Engines, yay! We got hydraulic struts to put that one open. So 2-liter 4-cylinder engines, P200 all-wheel drive, that's the one we see here, with 200 horsepower, and also the other namings are just according to the horsepower. Well done. So P250 means also 250 horsepower, also all-wheel drive, and P300 all-wheel drive, so those are the petrol engines. And all-wheel drive now with the active driveline means a decoupling of the rear axle when it's not needed, so it's front plus rear on demand. 9-speed automatic gearbox, soon more to that while driving. Then there's a diesel, also 2-liter 4-cylinder, D150, front-wheel drive and manual hand drive 6-speed. That's the only one, that's the exception, and also the only one which is not MHEV, no mild hybrid for the 8-volt ball with all others. Also in the D180 and also the D240, all-wheel drive and all with the new MHEV system. And last but not least, soon we can also expect a real plug-in hybrid. Well, as strange as the system with the opening handles is, what's interesting is this haptical feedback when you open them, you know. This one here is actually quite good, so it feels nice when they are open. And door closing sound, quite solid. And now a lot to talk about the interior, top part of the doors, inside soft touch, and then below that one you can get it in so-called Lux Tech. That's a new fabric. It really feels soft. It's like a mix of fabric and microfiber, somewhat in the middle, I would say. Really feels so premium, like, and among the best materials you can get for the interior in this segment. Also here then, used right there, really cool. Door pockets, quite slim. Then here an aerodynamic entry pack. What is interesting, and this really speaks for the whole vehicle, so many things, you know, like this insert of the doors and so on. So well done, best in segment. And then again, parts like those in the lower part, here to open the engine bay, this is like so cheaply done and it almost falls apart when you open it. And then you can see here this foot area, there's not much space here on the left part. That was before in the previous generation. When you have long feet like I do, you hardly fit there with your left foot. Also the whole area here, very small. Then again, this Lux Tech material on this dashboard surface feels so great. Also the top of the dashboard, soft touch, optional head-up display. New steering wheel, looks so great. There will be illuminated buttons when you turn on the ignition. Then microfiber steering wheel available, so well done. And when everyone says like, oh, it gets bad quite fastly, no, A, it does not. B, you can groom it to spice it up again, and C, when it's so bad after a couple of years, you can also replace it. But during that, you had so much fun with this microfiber steering. It's the best you can do for the steering wheel. It feels great. It's cool in summer. It's warm in winter. It's just awesome. Definitely go for that. Then, and that's again so awesome with this vehicle, there are so many sustainable and animal-friendly choices for the seats available. It starts with the base fabric seats in black. Those ones are the optional fabric seats with eucalyptus parts, so even more sustainable from natural resources. And they are available in grey or black. And you can see here the Lux Tech material here on the top part feels differently than the fabric on the lower part. They look great, they feel great, they give you great comfort. They are so premium, and it's a very good example that you can make a fabric seat really premium. And again, the advantages also just on the practical side, not only on the ethical side. They stay cool in summer and they stay warm in winter. the best seating choice you can have. Optional again, or let's say optional, so-called quadrat seats with 70% recycled PET bottles and 30% of wool. But that's again not completely animal free, and the wool industry is also very problematic, so I'm not sure if that's the best choice. I would actually go for exactly those ones. Maybe, you know, the color combination you can pick in, as I said, black or gray. But this is just amazing, and again, as for this respect, best in segment. So what's interesting right here, when I open the door, the steering wheel goes up, the seat goes backwards and down a little bit, so that's easier entry than into the vehicle. Therefore it looks also quite strange right now, as I'm sitting here right now with the steering wheel all the way up. But that's a good comfort feature. Again, so nice to have this grip on the steering wheel and so great fabric seats. Very comfortable seating position. However, you have to bear in mind that this one is a rather cramped cockpit position. Everything is built around you in a rather sporty style, and you have to like that. It's not the best as for the felt space you have around you. However, as for 1m86 or 6'1", there's still enough headroom left. That's no problem. There's all the panoramic roof available, not built in this car here at the moment. Overall, I think, you know, pretty standard for a compact SUV. But again, it keeps this tradition from the previous generation to make rather a sporty, caged-in cockpit feel. Those seats are in this case also electric, front and back, and also up and down, so on. Electric lumbar support. I'm not a lumbar support user, I just keep it all the way back, but maybe you are. And those ones here also have 3 memory seats actually, for possible 3 different drivers, of course. Taking a look here at the interior now, you start with the analog display and an optional those 12.3-inch digital ones. Here you can also see now how those buttons here are lit up, and this is a great quality here, for example, also for the volume. It feels very good, it gives you some kind of feedback, even nice clicking sounds, picking up the phone and so on. So that's very well done. We see a lot of integrated buttons now at steering wheels and so on, and this is actually now meanwhile the best execution. As we saw it the first time from Land Rover or Range Rover, it was not that well done. Here now a great execution. Shifting pedals right there. Then you get always this 10-inch screen. You can see now it is popped out, and when you shut down the car, after a while it goes back in position. You know, it's all aligned with the rest of the interior. Yeah, maybe a little bit complicated. And then this lower screen, actually, well, you can select the driving modes here with this jog. You can also click it here on the touch screen, that's possible. And the temperature is here on the right side, but that's a little bit hard to reach from here. You should come in from the other side, but that's also complicated. So not exactly sure what they thought about that. Microfiber here around the shifting lever, that's actually pretty cool. One thing is that when you want to go to reverse gear or the drive mode, that's not possible. You always have to click it here in the front. And well, that's normal maybe for putting it the first time. And also the rear view camera up here. But then, for example, like, you know, with other manufacturers, BMW as well, when you then want to go to drive mode again, you just do it like this, but that's not possible. That leads just to the neutral. So you have to click here in the front with the R and then click and hold and put it to D again. And the same way, this always just leads to the neutral. So maybe a little bit too complicated. Well, then the P mode again, zoom mode leads to all the screens. What's interesting is that you have cup holders here in 2 different sizes, and also with some rubber pads on the side for adaptive function. You can alternatively put you know, a cover above that just to put your smartphone on. That's possible. And then you have this middle armrest, which has this nice lux decker cover, and you can raise it up actually. And then below that you have some more space and for smartphone and so on, and USB supply. Well, and you know, this cover for the pads can also be stored there, but maybe not most practical. The digital instruments are quite nice. Left side with the digital speed and right side with the RPMs. In the middle part you can have some more information. But then again, how much more would you need there? Because most of the stuff then is in the head-up display. You need to see if you have that option. And here we go with the head-up display, assistance systems info, current speed and loud speed, and very clear to read, a good addition. And now to the screen. So here we go with the GPS, and it's actually quite responsive, looks quite nice. As for the visualization, it's a high gloss screen, by the way, so the matte ones would be better against glaring of sun and so on, but this one looks cooler, so to say. The menu structure is not the easiest one. I mean, you have those hotkeys here, then you have the main menu right there. Still, I think it could be maybe a little bit more intuitive. This is the Apple CarPlay integration, Apple CarPlay, of course, with the cable, and then not wirelessly available yet. Android Auto is also available, and the music is actually quite cool with the Meridian sound system here, so a nice quality. So like to listen to music here, and it's a good option to go for that. Other than that, you can go back to the Land Rover menu, and what else is interesting, as for the camera systems, you have this fake drone view from above. Tap image to zoom. But yeah, maybe like here. Here we go. Yeah. So this is then the side view, then in the mirrors, and also to the back, and like this. But also when you just put in a gear or reverse gear, then it makes it the whole rear view camera. And this is a very crisp resolution, so really great. They step up the game as for the rear view camera. Well, then you have this lower screen which looks quite fancy. There's one knob or turning knob available still here for the volume. And well, this is like a mix of analog and digital dials. This is here for the driving modes. Also have grass, mud and sand program. But yeah, who uses this off-road mode here for the Evoque? The climate functions, they can be changed right here where the vents are coming from, but so complicated to do that while driving actually. And well, I would also expect, like when you press something here, that more is happening, but then here it's a 2-zone climate. Here you can then change the vent strength, but again, it's a little bit too complicated. Here you can, for example, switch back to the temperature with clicking on it, but why not switching back then again to this vent? So I'm not sure how much sense it does make or not. A little bit too complicated everything. It looks again fancy, but especially using it while driving can, I would rather say, even be dangerous. And here you can also set some settings, you know, for this aerodynamic program, for example. But again, there's a lot to play around with, but if it's really useful, that's another question. And then there's also a hidden storage compartment underneath the lower middle console. Now getting in the rear, and I have to let the engine running actually, and that the seat doesn't go back, so open door and engine running for that, so I can still have you like the realistic figure for the legroom, and that's still quite okay. You remember a slight increase in wheelbase also means a little bit more space in the rear, so it's actually quite okay. I mean, it's not the best offering overall, you still feel somewhat cramped here, but I mean, it's still okay. As for the legroom, and also as for the headroom with 1.86 m or 6'1", so still quite cozy, and for 4 tall adults it's okay, definitely. As for the middle part, there is a middle tunnel, yes, but still, as we have this fabric seat here, you can sit in the middle, but the seat bench falls backwards a little bit, and the middle part is harder, so not the most comfortable seat here in the middle part, but for shorter, you know, trips it's okay. We have outside ISOFIX here at the seats. We do flip the seats from here already. Then there's also this middle armrest you can fold down, and in the middle lower part you have some USB supplies, 12-volt power supply and so on. 610 to 1430 liters it is in capacity, but what does that mean here for the trunk? The length here is about 83 centimeters. The width right there is a little bit more than a meter, so that's actually quite good. You can also install some, you know, separators here that go all the way over the trunk. That's possible. Below this cover here you have a little bit more space, and there are some tire repair kits and so on. I already flipped one of the seats. You have to do that from the rear compartment, and when I go back then into the front seat, this is 1.64 meters. Overall, I think we can live with that. Let's put a suitcase in here that you can actually see that, and the height to the cover here, so you know, below the cover is 44 centimeters. That's also fine. So then you can also put this back, this suitcase here up, and actually also close it again. So overall, I think, yeah, why not? welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Range Rover Evoque in the next generation. And yes, we are finally on the road again. Yay! That's so cool, right? So, hope you all had a good start to the new year as well. Now, what about this new generation of the Evoque? Going to talk about the changes from the previous generation and also how does it fit in? You know, if you look at the rest of the market, we recently also had a mid-size SUV special. Well, this one rather compact SUV, but still you can somehow refer to those we've tested there. To check out that special episode, I will also link it below in the video description and in the pinned comments. Well, first of all, everything you see and feel and touch here also while driving, this is superb. I mean, got this Alcantara steering wheel or this microfiber steering wheel. It just brings you so much joy in everyday driving life. Now in winter times, at the moment, it's pretty cold and you still have some like a warm grip to it. You don't have this freezing feeling, the same as on the, you know, with the seats here. I didn't feel like I have to turn up the seat heating because the slick surface of the animal skin would be too cold. This one here, fabric seats, then also the fabric steering, everything is warm and cozy. Although it's cold, that's perfect, you know, and also saves some energy definitely. And you know, it's like, you know, touching the steering wheel is like also like sitting on a nice sofa, you know, so that's pretty cool. At the same time, it's sporty as for the touch. The only thing is that the steering itself, that one is not that sporty. It's quite light, but it doesn't give you, let's say, the best feeling. So when you go a little bit right and left, you don't feel so much connected to the road, you know, so that's the thing. Feels quite light. It does change a little bit when you are in this dynamic mode. Then the throttle response is a little bit more crisp and also the steering gets a little bit stiffer, so to say. But it also, you know, when you have the adaptive suspension, which we have built in here, then also the suspension gets even stiffer. But it doesn't change the thing that you don't feel so much connected to the road, you know. So, you know, yeah, that's the thing. Overall, the car does feel more comfortable than the previous generation. The adaptive suspension gives you a little bit more comfort, yes. However, the car is still quite stiff, you know, and when you're running over some bumps, it's better than in the previous generation, yes. But still, you know, not the most comfortable, although we have those 18-inch winter tires mounted here, so 18-inch rims then as well. There are bigger ones available, which I would not recommend. Of course, they look somewhat kick-ass, you know, especially in combination with this vehicle. But you have to know that when the suspension is already stiff, you should not go for bigger wheels because the ride will be even stiffer. What has significantly improved, and you will soon also hear that when we approach the motorway, is the noise insulation. This one is one of the most silent vehicles in the segment overall on the, you know, on the market in this segment. I was, you know, really amazed by that. So driving high speeds on the motorway is so silent in here. That really fits to this premium touch and feel, you know, also like with this Lux Tech material we talked about earlier, the inside here of the doors and also at the seats, at the upper part and so on. So you really also while driving feel most exclusive in this vehicle as for everything you touch and feel and also as for the noise insulation. And this is really the story of this vehicle. As I told you initially, there are so many things that are so well done, sometimes even best in segment. But then there are other things which are like, what did they have that done there, you know, and close to sometimes worse in segment. So this is what this car, you know, this is what it makes so interesting and also so emotional that it's, you know, it's not like a standard or like a mid-segment benchmark. It's like, you know, going sideways in so many ways. Not dynamic driving wise, no, but yeah, I think you really get what I mean. And one of those things are, yeah, again, you know, so consumption. Yeah, it was a huge problem with the previous generation, and it is a little bit better than before. So when you pick a previous generation petrol engine, you could also directly buy a whole petrol station, and you would probably save some money by owning one. So here it's a little bit better, I would say, but yet again, I mean, they did so much to even improve that, like those integrated door handles, then that all of the engines except one of the manual hand drive, front wheel drive entry diesels, but all others have the 48 volt board-net MHEV mild hybrid system. And then there's also this decoupling of the rear axle for the all-wheel drive, so that when you just need front wheel drive, as it's happening in the normal driving situations, nothing, you know, from the rear parts of the, you know, of the rear axle and so on is, you know, just spinning without that's quite a lot of times with let's say older all-wheel drive systems on demand, that even if there's no power applied to the rear axle, to the rear wheels, there are still some parts spinning which are, you know, creating friction and, you know, boosting the consumption. But here, I mean, and I've been driving pretty conservatively, also like a lot of motorway, and so far 9 liters on 1 kilometers, that's 26 mpg US, 31 mpg UK. That's still very bad. And again, this was like smooth driving, nothing real special. Talking about real special, let's go to this dynamic mode, and we can also put it here into this S shifting mode when turning the shifting lever, which is also beautifully covered with microfiber to the left side. And then we can have, let's say, the shifting process that's boosted up the most, 50 kilometers to 100. Let's go now. Plop, that's it. That was 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. And yeah, I mean, it was quite okay. 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, 200 horsepower. Again, I really love it that they stick to a good naming system, that you know, oh, a P200 has 200 horsepower. Why doesn't everyone do that, you know, like this? Like all those, especially like the new Audis, like TFSI 55, where like, what is that? You know, nothing. Here, really logical system. Now again in this dynamic mode, steering wheel stiffer, suspension stiffer, gears are also a little bit, you know, crisper, and everything is definitely, you know, on the sporty side. But again, the steering wheel, it doesn't give me a connection from driver, car and the road. So, not really that well done. Again, it's more supposed to give you some comfort, and suspension-wise, the car feels stiff and sporty, but again, the steering does not fit to the rest of the vehicle. You maybe also saw it here on this camera. It sometimes seems like you're a little bit cramped in here also while driving, especially as a tall driver. Everything is dark, also from the ceiling in this case. You have the cockpit all built around you, and this is indeed the case. So the car feels on the inside smaller than it is, especially in the front cockpit perspective. You really have to like this approach of the, you know, of this sort of thing in a compact SUV. So, and well, there's also cruise control available, blind spot monitor, cruise control. I said it here, for example, that the distance to the car in front of me is being kept. That worked pretty flawlessly. Tested it earlier. I think when I get on to the next, you know, other side of motorway, I probably can show you the blind spot monitor. We'll flash the in the side mirrors. That all works perfectly. That's really good. As for the assistant systems, really nice. Now in this roundabout, let's see, check around how I can. You see, I have to turn steering wheel quite a lot. The car itself, suspension-wise, gets quite stiff in the corner, but again, the steering doesn't give me the best feeling. So, yeah, driving dynamics-wise, not too happy. When I'm accelerating quite hard, there's also more torque transport to the rear wheels. Other than that, as I told you earlier, most of the time this car is predominantly front-wheel drive. Why should you turn when turning? Set the turning indicator when turning right? And why should you drive more than 30 kilometers when approaching the motorway? Well, that sometimes happens. So, and now let's check out the blind spot monitor, which should appear now. or not. There it is. So was, you know, still flashing a little bit because the car was changing the lane, and that's definitely a very helpful function. There's like the assistance systems package, which you should go for. And again here, nice noise insulation, hardly hear anything about 100 kilometers an hour. Now let's see about hitting the brakes now. Yeah, that's a crisp response, nice. So good feeling from the brakes, and you know, this continues throughout the car, you know. Every single feature you test, kind of nothing is standard. Either something is like really perfectly done or extremely poor. And yeah, again, I mean, this is really what makes this car so extremely interesting. I mean, you can decide for yourself then if that's something you want, you know. If you rather want a car which is subtle and, let's say, good in every respect, and you don't have to think about it, or if you rather want a more emotional car where you sometimes say like, wow, that's so amazing, and sometimes they say like, that's crap. Yeah. At the end of the day, it makes your car life more interesting, no matter what. Yeah, decide for yourself. So definitely pretty cool. Also, the head-up display is well done. Very good to read the current speed and the allowed speed. So overall, it's fun to drive the car. Yes. You know, as I said earlier, best in segment materials on all the surfaces, really cool. Nice noise insulation, extremely well done as for the whole premium feel and so on. Crisp brakes. Then again, suspension wise, even with this optional 1,500 euros adaptive suspension, could still be more comfortable than controlling everything while driving here with the driving modes. Temperature and so on. Reach over here. Yeah, there's everything a little bit complicated as for the whole interface and so on. So I think this could be improved. The digital instruments are very well to read also while driving, although when you have the optional head-up display, that's most of the time you're just watching on this and you're all just fine, you know. Here again on the countryside road, I can set the cruise control again, and in the head-up display it also shows me like a symbol when there's a car in front of me and the distance is being kept. There's also here a separate button where I can activate or deactivate the lane keeping assist. So that's also available. Here again, for example, speed is being reduced. That is quite smoothly done. What's not that smooth, I always have to watch like those estates or those caddies that there maybe like speed cameras inside. So what's not that smoothly done is the gearbox, and I was kind of surprised by that because ZF is supplying the gearbox for Jaguar Land Rover for ages now, especially like the typical ZF 8-speed automatic converter gearbox is like superb. It's probably the best gearbox on the market. However, already in the previous generation, Land Rover was using a 9-speed automatic gearbox here in the Evoque. And there were quite a lot of problems with that. Maybe because it was just new, I don't know. It has been revised here for the new generation, but it's still not, I don't think it feels like finished, because sometimes there's like a stuttering when you're like on the brakes, and then you think, oh, traffic light jumps to green, still have to go, and then it takes like half a second and it like hesitates a little bit. And that feels quite weird, you know. Also when you accelerate, sometimes not full throttle, not slowly, but like mid-throttle, it feels a little bit, yeah, that it would be like working too much or something. So there are quite a few moments where I thought, okay, that's the gearbox. So like with very well done gearboxes, you only say like, well, I didn't feel anything of the gearbox, it was all flawless, you know. But here you sometimes do feel that, and that's actually not a good sign. So, again, you can have this S shifting mode. You can go to the D shifting mode again if you want it a little bit more calm. You usually also leave the car in a normal driving mode. We also have like several different off-road driving modes, but I mean, again, let's be honest. No one will ever take a Range Rover Evoque in serious off-road conditions. It is still somewhat capable, yes, you know, ground clearance 21 centimeters, I think like 9 inches, something what I said initially. And I did also test the Evoque in the previous generation ones in a like heavy off-road park. It does work, yes, to some extent, but it doesn't really make sense. So offering all those off-road programs, yeah, I think that's just for show, you know. So should rather concentrate on street driving. And again, I would have loved if they would have fixed like this very stiff ride for this generation. Again, yes, gain in comfort, but especially with the adaptive suspension, I would have expected a little bit more comfort, especially now here, like the road is very uneven and I get all like, you know, the potholes, I do feel them. They don't get to your lower back, but you still somehow feel them overall. Yeah, that's how it is. Should you go for a different engine? Well, the diesel will probably be a little bit more fuel saving, but then again, it's not too big of a car. I'm not sure if that really makes sense. And most markets will rely on the petrol anyway. Yeah, they have, you know, the fuel economy is better than in the previous generation, but still not that good as I told you earlier. So that's something you probably have to live with when driving this vehicle. For me, the most crucial change is really the noise insulation. That's really cool. It still feels like the original Evoque, but definitely more sophisticated than before. And if you think about the competition, you know, especially like German premium manufacturers, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and the question is like, where do you put it against? Is it more Mercedes GLA and BMW X1 and Audi Q3, or more Audi Q5, Mercedes GLC and the BMW X3? So this one here rather short, so it would be rather the smaller models, you know, like GLA, X1 and Q3. And of course they also come somewhat all close in price. This one here, 38,000 euros entry price, as we take a German reference price, for example. And this very test vehicle, which is not the biggest engine, 67,000 euros with all the extras. Wow, super expensive. But then again, also the other cars I just mentioned, you can also boost the price there pretty much. And driving dynamics wise, and also with the compromise of sportiness and comfort, there the German ones really do better. And also, especially as for the steering feel, if you think about especially the BMW. BMW has the best like overall driving, steering feel, fun in driving and so on with the X1. And the Mercedes and the Audi are probably most comfortable. The adaptive suspension for the X1 also works very well. So a lot of the hardware facts are better with the competitors, and especially also the gearbox. That's clearly the case. Fuel economy a little bit. The others are also not super good with that. The BMW is probably the best at the fuel economy. Then again, they here mastered the materials the best actually. So that's something which is really cool. And this one is also the most unique, the most special vehicle in this segment, you know, which feels most different. For some of the other cars nowadays, you say, you know, let's switch the logo, and guess what it is? But here you can still, you know, unmistakably know and see what it actually is. It's a Land Rover, yeah, or especially then like a Range Rover, which is kind of funny because sometimes like when you really state the original brand, it would be Land Rover, Range Rover, Evoque. Yeah, but we stick with Range Rover Evoque. That's definitely easier. And funny story is that, you know, there's a big tradition in, you know, foreign countries outside Germany spelling German car brands predominantly in the wrong way. And we also have some special episodes where I pronounce actually the German car brands correctly, which is kind of funny. But then again, vice versa, there's also a tradition that car model names, international ones, are mispronounced in Germany. And that goes, for example, also for the Evoque. And there were actually some people in Germany who was like, oh, that's the new Evoque. The Range Rover Evoque. Yeah, pretty funny, but that also shows you that when you pick a name, you have to think about so many different countries. You also know those things like, Mitsubishi Pajero, which has an interesting meaning in Spanish language, or with the Hyundai Kona, which has a very interesting meaning in the Portuguese language. Therefore, they tend to switch those names around for some of the markets. Well, that's maybe not the case for Evoque, because it's like this artificial name. It doesn't mean anything like the direct meaning. Of course, there's like the evolution in there, or maybe evoking emotions or something. But it's an artificial name, so it doesn't have a problem with meaning, but still sometimes with pronunciation. Yeah, that's about the Evoque. So very interesting here, the ride in the new generation. I hope you really also enjoyed this driving party together with me. And of course, I'm now also looking forward to your feedback to driving the all-new Range Rover Evoque. And now to our conclusion for today with the all-new Range Rover Evoque. Where from the exterior, a little bit more refined, not that dramatic as before, but still kept this rather iconic shape of the Evoque, which is still splitting a little bit in love or hate, that's for sure. On the interior, awesome materials available. It looks, so great from the inside. It feels so great. So probably the best in segment as for the use of interior materials. Infotainment system could be maybe a little bit better, but you get the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, so that doesn't matter that much then. But the lower input, especially while driving, a little bit too complicated, I think. Also, for example, with the shifting, that doesn't go that fast, front and back. You always have to, use this click in the front. That could be a little bit better. So I explained to you earlier, great that we also have this microfiber steering wheel available, by the way, but the steering feel could be a little better. Also the fuel economy and also the comfort of the suspension. So driving dynamic wise, definitely not the best in segment, but the noise insulation is really great now. And indeed, this has been the story throughout this vehicle. So many things where it's really so extremely great, and other things where you say like, that's a little bit doubtful. At the end of the day, this also makes this car very interesting. What do you think? Give me your opinions in the comments, and if you're already an Evoque owner, please also state your experience. Looking forward to that, and also see you at our next episode.